It started in Jantar Mantar and has now shifted to Jharkhand. Thousands of youngsters are out on the streets of Ranchi protesting irregularities in government recruitment exams. The venue and the exam might be different, but the core issues remain the same: education, employment, and a sense of anxiety and frustration among the youth about their future. To decode where our education system is failing and to discuss the kind of structural reforms that's needed, I have with me the former Education Secretary, Mr. R Subrahmanyam. Currently, he's also the head of CRISP, or the Center for Research in Schemes and Policies, which works on strengthening government delivery mechanisms. But before we dive in, a small reminder to all of you watching that such conversations are only possible with the support of subscribers. So do consider signing up and supporting News Laundry and the News Minute. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Subrahmanyam. I want to start with what we've been seeing over the past couple of months. First, we saw the protests in Jantar Mantar. Now we're seeing the protests in Jharkhand. As someone with your experience both in education and social justice, do you view these protests in isolation or as something that's part of a systemic issue?
No, it is, it's a break point. Let me see. Let me just put it like this. See, finally, if the system cannot perform, so people will only tolerate to some extent. Afterwards, that break point comes, and then they'll all spill over onto the streets. So, I, I think this issue is something which we could have actually done a lot better, certainly, because it's a systemic, it's a design issue, as I keep saying, that it's primarily a design issue. If you redesign it, then things will be fine. It's not a problem that requires a Nobel laureate to crack. The problem statement is clear. We have the capability, and with an intent, we can put the system right.
Sir, could you elaborate what exactly you mean by design change? Because are you speaking specifically about these entrance exams or about the education system as a whole?
So education system is what we have to address, because examination system is a subset of it. So when we are really talking about, but we can start with a discussion on the examination system. That's possible. So when we redraw the entire examination system, not as a single examination, but as a series of assessments which happen over a period of 2 years, with a standardized examination, which actually looks at assessing the ability of the student to understand the concept and apply it. Okay, so once we do this change in the examination system, what would happen is that the education system gets automatically adjusted to operating in a much different way.
Currently, what would you say is happening? Because you've also spoken and written about how the current system, for instance, we have the coaching industry, the whole, the focus being solely on that and the entrance. The system that you mentioned, how would that reimagine this?
So the coaching industry has to go. See, the point is that as an assisting mechanism, it can exist, but not as a replacement of the school education.
Which is what was happening.
This is what is happening now. So basically, shops are open, so they are declared as the schools, and then those schools actually have replaced the entire school education system, and then focusing purely on just sort of cramming, helping the students to cram. They understand nothing, but they can crack examinations. That's what is happening. So I think that has to. So when we strengthen the school education, right? So when this entire formative assessment happens in the school, at the as per the school's timing, etc., then things will change. The school education will become stronger, and then this sort of a aberrations, I would call it as an aberration, the current coaching system would have to substantially change.
Would that also mean that an exam like NEET, for instance, could be done more as a continuous assessment, so to speak, than as one single exam where the student feels that their whole future kind of hinges on that.
Absolutely. So we brought out a policy paper. CRISP has brought out a policy paper on this. I don't know whether you had an access to have a look at that. So primarily, we are arguing that one-shot examination is a very wrong way to select a student. You should actually you should assess the student over a period of time. That's on his ability to understand concepts and apply them, but that is also not sufficient. We are saying that there has to be an assessment of the aptitude. So for that aptitude test, we need to really look at whether the student is participating in various activities, within the school, outside the school. So it should be possible to put in place a system for recording this sort of participations. For example, now you have this entire Olympiad concept. You have the Smart India hackathons, for example. There are so many innovation challenges which are happening. If you are really interested, for example, in engineering, you should be able to participate there and then make your mark. And that has to get recorded, and it should be counted for your admission decision.
Instead of being separate things, whereas where if you take part maybe out of your interest, but then that doesn't reflect on your admission procedure.
Absolutely.
If I could take you back, currently we're speaking about entrance exams like NEET, which happen at a later stage of a student's life. But you've also argued that structural reforms in education need to happen at a much earlier stage, like starting with the Anganwadis. If you could tell us what is the current situation and what needs to change.
So currently, it's a very alarming situation that nearly 2/3 of the children in this country, they don't have access to pre-primary education, right? So they have only access to Anganwadis. 2/3, yeah, more than 60%, and they are in urban areas, they are in rural areas, tribal areas, they are everywhere, but they don't have access to a properly designed pre-primary education. This is particularly worrying because now the research has been conclusively proved that 85% of the brain development actually happens during this period between before the child reaches the 6th year, right? So after that, baki the rest of the life, we are only addressing the other 15% of the brain development. So very significant portion of the intellectual growth is actually connected with how well we are going to organize our pre-primary education. So that's the what I'm saying now is not a statement, not a philosophical statement. It is an evidence-based statement. Now, having said that, what are the options for this 2/3 people? It's only Anganwadis, no, nothing else, because we don't have anything else. Our entire primary education system starts at class 1 for most of the country. Of course, there are states like Punjab, Haryana, notable exceptions, or now Himachal is starting. Meghalaya has already started. So every primary school has got a pre-primary section. That's wonderful. But the whole of the country, if you look at the whole of the country, most states are still not having pre-primary sections in the primary schools. So it is left to Anganwadi. So what we are basically arguing is you must find a way to strengthen Anganwadis and convert it into a pre-primary, a functioning, efficient, a systematic pre-primary education center. So there is a very good blueprint that has been prepared for this. We just got to implement that.
Okay, and if we go a little further in the child's education, if we go to middle school, high school, what is the kind of infrastructure and teachers and the kind of education that we are providing to our youngsters, and how is that part of the the problem that we're seeing today?
So I mean, you see, the Indian education system for decades together has based itself on rote learning, right? So all the teachers who are actually teaching today, they are all products of that particular system. So it does take fair amount of reworking of the way that they are thinking, the way that they are teaching, before we can expect a better education system in the schools. One very good way to make this change is through the assessments. That's why we are therefore arguing that we need to have an assessment system which is standardized, which is a national backbone. It should I keep calling it a national backbone where everybody can actually contribute to it, but and everybody can draw from it, right? So if the school wants to conduct a test, right, in class 6, the teacher should be able to simply log into her system and then say, okay, I want 20 questions from this particular in this particular subject covering the following topics with this amount of difficulty. She should simply give these parameters, and the system should be able to automatically generate a question paper. So we need to have a very robust item bank or question bank, as we call it, which is standardized, which is scientific, which is tested. And once we have that backbone in place, people can all draw from it. They can contribute to it, and then they can also draw from it. So this is the system that we are arguing for.
But this would be like across syllabuses, across schools. You think that something like that could?
It's possible. It's highly possible. So see, uh, it has nothing to do with the school, right? So knowledge has no school limitation, right? So suppose if you are learning thermodynamics, whether you study in IIT or in a ITI, finally you are actually the fundamentals you are learning is only that, right? So basically, if you are having an assessment, national assessment backbone, which is set up where teachers can contribute questions from across the country, right? And then those questions are actually assessed by certain experts, and then look at the standards. If you do some sort of field testing, and once all that is over, then they become part of a national question bank or national item bank. And then once that is there, then the system that I am arguing, that the teacher should be able to log in and then generate a question paper then and there. That will be possible.
Okay. And if we are to, look at college education at the graduate level, and here I'm not speaking of the IITs, etc., but what's on offer to the average student. One thing we keep hearing about is the mismatch between, at least that's what companies complain about, that there seems to be a gap between what they are looking for in recruits and what they actually possess. And at the same time, we have a huge youth unemployment problem as well as unfulfilled vacancies. How do we address this?
So, I mean, this is really a very sad question, because what I feel. I feel very, very concerned reading this India Employment Report 2024, which is brought out by ILO. What it brings out is that more you are educated, less likely that you are employed. That's because you are actually learning how not to do things rather than how to do things. So that's because if you are a degree student, you don't want to do this particular work. First of all, you don't know how to do it, because that degree that he's studying, the 3 years, he's actually not learning any skill at all. And you will be shocked to know how much of how many students actually attend class. I mean, I was quite shocked when we go to colleges and see the classes are empty. Nobody comes to class, and then this is a vicious cycle. The students don't come to class. So the teacher is completely demotivated. So he doesn't teach anything. The people who are in the class again drop out. So it is actually a vicious cycle operating in the higher education system, and it is quite a sad thing, and it has to be addressed. So one way we are really looking at is, can we design courses, right, where for 1 year out of the 3 years, 1 year a person works in the at the shop floor as an apprentice. So apprenticeship act is nothing new. See, it is 19. I think it's 1962 or 61 act. Yeah. But we have never taken it seriously. in this country with the current workforce, we have the capacity to generate 1 crore apprenticeships per year. uh, but all the apprenticeship schemes of government of India and the state governments put together, we are only providing about 17 lakh apprenticeships. So we are actually somewhere around, we are utilizing 17%, 17 to 20% of the capacity that we have. So I think it's time that we design education programs which automatically align with the apprenticeship vacancies, and then the student studies for 2 years. He will pick up the skill, knowledge. I mean, he will read about that particular sector, and that for 1 year he will work on the field. And by the time he completes the degree, he is ready to enter the that particular sector. So UGC has actually brought out a good guideline on this. The first guideline came in 2000, and then 2020, and then it has been updated in 2025. So this program is happening. I mean, Chris, for example, is working with about 1,000 colleges across the country on this. So I think there is a hope. There is a way out. There is a systemic reform that is possible. But one thing is very clear: by the time a student comes out of the college after 3 years or now 4 years, he should know something about what a particular sector wants, and then he should be able to get into that and then start contributing.
And the 17 lakh is the apprenticeships on offer, or that 17 lakh students are making use of the apprenticeship?
So, as per the both NAPS and NATS, there are two schemes called NAPS and NATS. So both these schemes are actually funding the student to take apprenticeship. So 17 lakhs is what we are actually funding every year, right? So I suppose beyond that, there may be somebody may be working on an apprenticeship, but I doubt it very much, because the apprenticeship ecosystem has been defined by these two schemes, very very important schemes called NAPS and NATS. So together we are addressing about 17 lakhs.
And the fact that I also want to understand the kind of expenditure that India is making on education, whether under investment is an issue, because currently we're at about 4% of GDP that's going towards education, right? Which is, I think, below what the National Education Policy has been recommending. And the other thing is, of course, that I think for governments, there is less incentive to invest in education versus spending on infrastructure like highways or, how much is that part of the problem?
So it's good to have greater investments. I think nobody will. I mean, it's no brainer that you spend more on a particular thing, so it will get more this thing. But it's fallacious again to equate quality with investment. Across India has built under the Operation Blackboard lakhs of school classrooms, right? Starting from probably late 1980s till about 2000. This Operation Blackboard has been a great scheme, which has, for the first time, we started building classrooms. But let me tell you that it has zero correlation with the quality of education. So I don't want to I don't want to say that investment will lead to greater quality. Not necessarily. Investment is required because you need to set up more institutions, you have to promote your research, you have to train your teachers, you have to bring in greater learning aids. So all that will actually cost money, right? So investment is important. But having said that, more important is that, are we engaging the student in a learning process? Are the teachers capable of doing that? Do we have teaching aids which can capture the imagination of this Gen Z everybody is talking about? I mean, do we have that sort of learning aids? Are we developing it? That is the question. And if so, what is the quality of it? Whether it is actually preparing the student for the life outside or not. So these are the issues which need to be debated. So it is actually I would say, while investment is good, investment is not everything. It is a design problem. See, our problem is how do you design your education system? You design it right, um, then things will go on. Some investment will really help.
Got it. And if I were to go back to the Jharkhand protests that we're currently seeing, and also to just look at it in a broader sense, that we continue to see, lakhs of youngsters applying for government jobs that run into, a few thousands at the most. Do you see that itself as a failure of the education system? Because, we're a liberalized economy for decades now. There should be other avenues, there should be other opportunities. What do you make of this still? How, I mean, if you speak to youngsters as well, you'd have seen those interviews where they say that, this government job is what they want.
Yeah, government job they want because it I know if a student is actually craving for a government job, then I think it is also a failure on the part of the private sector to provide well-paying, respected, secure jobs. Unfortunately, all our labor codes, everything is actually tilted so much towards the industry that very little is actually talked about. The real labor, bringing in better quality circumstances at the workplace, providing them some sort of a social security cover. I think all that has to be really looked at. So we must make the private sector employment attractive enough for the students to opt for it. Today it is not. That's why private sector means everybody will say, okay, be a gig worker. Why will I be a gig worker when I have studied? I have certain aspirations. I don't want to be. I want to contribute to manufacturing. I want to contribute to a service industry, which is where I can use my knowledge. So that is the sort of thinking that Gen Z has got. But we have not created that sort of an opportunities in adequate measure. I am certain that when we are talking about employment, when we are talking about all these agitations, we must necessarily look at this question: are we creating adequate number of jobs for the youth of this country? I was just doing the data analysis of the past 20 years, and I can see the jobless growth really staring at us, and then that's actually going to be a critical factor if you want to really talk about taking care of the youth and then providing them opportunities to contribute to the nation building. We must look at how to create new jobs, and that creating of new jobs should not be at the cost of diluting the standards of the there are people. I read some articles. You reduce the minimum wage, you increase the number of working hours to 10, 12 per day, like what Vietnam has done, or you don't burden within quotes the industrial establishment for all their leave and other things. uh, then then actually you are not looking at the workforce as a participating entities in building up an economy. You are using workforce only as an instrument for making more money to the companies. So that's not that sort of a model will not work.
Yeah,
It will
yeah,
not work.
yeah. And they'll be even less incentivized to apply to these jobs, right? If the conditions
Absolutely.
become worse, not better.
Yes.
I also
Absolutely.
want to quickly, go back to, because we started this discussion with the protests, which were about exams. While we've spoken about reimagining the focus on entrance exams, but how do we also, inspire confidence in the process of conducting exams? Because that's, of course, been the breaking point, so to speak.
So I think that's a much easier task. So I think if you can actually get your modality right. See, we have not got our modality right. You are living in a in 4 decades back or 5 decades back system where you print the things, you pack, you parcel, you send it, you store it somewhere. and then you come and distribute, and finally the paper gets handled by about 12 13 people, and anywhere it can leak. So we have adopted that particular system. So obviously your system is totally wrong. It should have actually traverse the entire technological. The technology is developing at such rapid pace. Today, you should be. I mean, I'm saying the technology has come to a stage where I can sit in my residence and then write a test, and then the AI is proctoring me all the time, and then proctoring it so well that if I do any cheating, I get caught and I get delinked from the exam. So our technology is growing at a rapid. I'm not saying that we should use that without checking. We have to check all that. I'm saying that your testing agency should be nimble towards the towards adopting newer technologies, which can reduce the chance of leakages, and also increase transparency and facility to the student. It should not put the student at such stress that they will break down or commit suicide. So this is what is required. So the testing agency must really look at adopting newer technologies, becoming better, rather than saying that last year भी मैं ये किया था तो इस साल में भी वही करूंगा. So this is the sort of argument that the many testing agencies are doing. So we need to. I think we have enough technological tools with proper cyber security built in to run exams well. India is got such huge IT manpower. We have the capacity. We just got to say, yes, I want to do it better. That's all. That's all is needed.
That's actually what I was going to ask you, because I think one argument is that that in NEET, for example, that pen and paper is more accessible for students from underprivileged backgrounds, that we don't have the infrastructure to conduct it on a scale of, say, for 20 lakh students. How do we solve for that?
So this is a fallacy that is spread by vested interests. Because if you look at, I interact very regularly with students from the rural areas. They are completely logged into a technological system. Please, they are all using. Many of them know how to use AI tools. They are far ahead of the generation who think that लोग को आता नहीं है कंप्यूटर चलाना. Actually, computers they may not be having access, but digital, they are already in the digital world, completely in the digital world. So I think to say that they don't have access, poor people, all that is I will say it's complete nonsense. It's a canard which is spread by people who want to see that the pen and paper exam continues.
So changing that and making it a continuous assessment would, as you say, ease the stress on students. If I were to ask you the top 3 structural reforms that were needed, and if you could also convey the urgency with which this needs to be implemented when we speak about the future of the youth.
So the first thing is that there cannot be a single exam. One, definitely. And then it has to be a standardized exam. It has to reflect the ability to test the understanding of the concepts, and then application of it. So the way your testing has to change, the way the assessment is done has to change. So I think once, and then third thing is that you have to look at aptitudes also, not simply your ability to reproduce whatever is there in the textbooks. You should know, if you're a good medical student, for example, how many medical camps you have attended. Did you go to did you participate any of these studies? There are lots of studies that are happening in the urban slums, in rural areas, about the health systems. Did you ever participate in a public health drive? All these things will show the aptitude of the person to become a doctor. Without all this, you just we cannot be allotting seats based on ranks.
And how urgently would you say these reforms need to be undertaken?
I think first Nandan Nilekani's committee, of course, has actually is studying that. We have actually presented this policy paper to him. So there is once we decide on that. See, first thing is to get a national consensus on how to do this. Once we get the national consensus, we'll have to work backwards. How obviously it cannot be done from next year, right? So because we are changing the system, so it needs to have a time period, but I'm sure we must find the best possible way, shortest which can be implemented in the shortest possible time, because it is a matter of grave concern. Until such time that we can actually step in and then do all this online examinations with technology, etc. That's something which we can actually set it up very very quickly, and do this embrace the technology for a better examination till such time that the structural reforms that we have suggested to Nandan's committee can be accepted, and then they become a reality.
And do you also believe that using this online mode for exams, even in recruitment exams, which is what we're seeing the current protest over, do you think that could also restore faith in the system for youngsters?
No, there is no other way. See, the point is that, as I keep saying, pen and paper exam is, I keep calling it a Ram Bharosa exam, because it's all depends on heavenly intervention, really, because it's so easy to get a paper out of a pen and paper system. It's so easy to leak. So especially in the recruitment examinations, it is extremely sensitive examination. So we need to be doubly careful. Certainly, online is the only way for all this, and that we can do it very very well.
Got it. Thank you so much, Mr. Subrahmanyam, for joining us and sharing your thoughts and perspective on how to improve our system. Thank you.
Thank you, Indu. Thank you so much. Yeah.